Story 1: The Desert Encounter. It was 2017, and I'd been driving overnight through the Mojave Desert, hauling appliances. At least, I think that's what I was delivering. I was heading for Arizona, and it was pitch black out there, with nothing but my semi's dim headlights cutting through the dark. I'd been putting off getting them fixed for way too long, but since there were no cars on the road, the poor visibility was more noticeable than ever. I remember straining my eyes every few minutes, trying to make out the road ahead. I was tempted to pull over and wait for the sun, but money was tight and I couldn't afford to waste any time. So I kept going, even though it probably wasn't the safest idea. The road was a straight shot, so I figured I could handle it. It was about an hour before sunrise when I saw something up ahead, something fast-moving. I slammed on the brakes thinking it was an animal, but when I came to a stop, I saw it was a car, its hazard lights blinking in the middle of the road. The odd thing? The car was parked smack in the middle of the double yellow lines, and the passenger door was wide open. Now, I'm not the type to get scared easily. After all, I've been around long enough to know how to handle myself in a sticky situation. But even so, something about this felt off. Curiosity overpowered caution, so I reversed my rig and pulled over. I thought maybe the driver needed a jump or something. I stepped out of the truck into the still, warm desert night. It was eerily quiet too, just the faint ticking of the hazards in the silence. I made my way over to the car, a new-looking red Ford Fusion, and stopped dead in my tracks. The car was empty. I checked the back seat, the passenger seat, nothing. I peered into the trunk, wondering if maybe someone had left it open in a hurry. No luck. The car was as empty as the desert around me. At that point, my gut told me to get back in the truck and drive off, but I ignored it. I felt like there was something I needed to figure out. I checked the ignition, key still in it, engine off, but something didn't sit right. I walked around the car and checked the trunk. It was locked, but after grabbing the key, I unlocked it. The trunk wouldn't open. I tried getting it open from the back seat. Finally, after some effort, it popped open. Inside, there were 3 large garbage bags and some rope tied around the trunk. But then, I heard something that froze me in place, a loud gunshot, cutting through the silence. I hit my head on the roof of the car as I scrambled to get out of there, adrenaline pumping. Without even thinking, I tossed the keys onto the front seat, bolted out of the car, and ran back to my truck. As I was climbing into the cab, I heard a gruff voice yelling in the distance. "Hey," it called, sounding closer by the second. Panic set in as I started my truck, slamming it into gear. That's when I saw him. A short, husky guy with red hair stood at the trunk of the car, holding a small shovel in one hand and an old hunting rifle in the other. We locked eyes for a few seconds before I gunned the engine and peeled away. He dropped the shovel, waved his arms, and yelled for me to stop. But there was no way I was sticking around. I floored it, speeding down that dark desert highway, terrified he might try something. After about 5 minutes, I started to think I was in the clear. Then, I saw headlights in the rearview mirror. He was chasing me. My heart raced. The car behind me honked like crazy. I wasn't sure what he was going to do, but I wasn't stopping. I called the cops and told them what had happened, trying to stay calm, but the car kept tailing me. Then, it happened. The car swerved in front of me, slammed on the brakes, forcing me to slow down. I was just seconds away from hitting him when I saw flashing police lights ahead. The guy swerved off to the right and disappeared into the desert. I pulled over, still shaken, and gave the officer my report. But the cop didn't seem too concerned. Instead of chasing the guy down, he just wrote up my statement. He said they'd do a thorough search once backup arrived, but they never contacted me again. To this day, I don't know what that guy was up to. Some of my buddies think he was burying bodies, but the shovel was too small, and the bags didn't look like they'd fit a body. Maybe it was something else. Maybe he was just burying some animal. I really have no idea. But after that night, I've never been comfortable driving through the desert at night again. It's a story I've told 1,000 times, but it still gives me chills. Story 2: the abandoned stop. I'm sure you've seen those truckers on TikTok or YouTube sharing their routines and offering tips. I'm a bit younger in the game, and honestly, every time I open one of those apps, that's all I see. But anyway, I'll spare you the details. Long story short, I dropped out of a prestigious university for personal reasons, and people like to remind me I could have been more than just a trucker. But honestly, I don't mind the job. Sure, the hours are long, but it's the isolation that gets to you. If you're in the business, you'll know that. I've been driving for a little over 2 years now, and I'll be honest, there was this one trip about 3 months into my first gig that I'll never forget. It was a 12-hour haul from southern New Jersey to Lafayette, Indiana. 12 hours doesn't sound too crazy, right? Well, it was after I'd already done an 8-hour leg, so yeah, it was wearing me down. I decided to push through and drive through the night, hoping to make it before 3 a.m. The road was pretty quiet, so I was able to speed up a little, but it wasn't long before I realized I'd forgotten to restock my truck with energy drinks. Not exactly ideal when you're already running low on energy. I slapped the dashboard in frustration and groaned. There was no way I could keep driving like this. I hate stopping on the road. Just sitting there makes me even more tired, even if it's just for a minute. But my choices were simple: stop for an energy drink or risk falling asleep behind the wheel. I reluctantly pulled into the first service stop I could find. But when I got there, it wasn't a service stop at all. It was an old, abandoned gas station that had been turned into a convenience store. I figured there'd be another place up the road, so I decided to check it out anyway. I parked my semi and walked toward the convenience store, expecting it to be either open or locked. But when I tried the door, it swung open into pitch blackness. Strange, right? I stepped inside, thinking maybe I'd find a leftover drink or snack, but I didn't really expect much. Then, I noticed a faint glow coming from a back room. My curiosity got the best of me, and I opened the door. Inside, there was a refrigerator plugged in against the wall. Finally, something useful, I thought. I opened it, hoping to find a drink, but nothing. The shelves had been completely removed, just an empty fridge. That's when I heard it. A loud clatter, like something had fallen in the main room. I froze, unsure if I'd imagined it. I stood there in the dark for what felt like an eternity. But after a few moments, I quietly walked back into the main room, scanning the space for anything unusual. Nothing. I was definitely starting to feel uneasy, but I figured it was just an abandoned building, maybe a squatter or two. Still, I didn't want to stick around, so I quickly walked out the door. That's when I saw it. The door was wide open. I was 100% sure I had closed it behind me. I didn't have time to think about it. I just hopped back in my truck, started the engine, and merged onto the highway. I needed to get back on the road, fast. As I drove, the caffeine started to kick in, but my mind wouldn't let go of what had happened at that store. Why was the fridge gutted? Who had been there? I tried to shake it off, but then something else happened. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the curtain behind me. I felt the sweat start to bead on my forehead. The curtain was billowing, even though I hadn't turned on the air conditioning. It was almost like someone was moving around back there. My heart raced. I wasn't carrying any weapons, and the thought of someone in my truck sent a cold shiver down my spine. I pulled up the nearest police station on my phone and started driving toward it. The next 20 minutes were the most nerve-wracking of my life. I kept imagining whoever was back there creeping up behind me. Finally, I reached the police station, pulled over as close as I could, and practically ran inside. Within seconds, my truck was surrounded by cops. When they opened the back of my truck, what they pulled out will stay with me forever. There were 3 people, 2 men and a woman, dressed in rags and wrapped in filthy blankets. One of the men was armed with 2 switchblades. None of them said a word. They just stared at me with cold, menacing eyes as they were cuffed. I have no idea what they wanted or why they were in my truck, but I know one thing for sure. I'll never forget that night. Story 3. The Roadside Trap. My name's Kevin, and I've been a trucker for nearly 15 years. After all this time, things have become pretty routine. Pick up the load, verify the materials, and deliver them on time. We're not paid by the hour, so efficiency is everything. I like to think I can outwork all the younger guys snapping up these jobs. The only problem with that is I tend to push myself to the absolute limit, especially when it comes to sleep. 4 years ago, I was working for a warehouse in North Dakota. For anyone who's never been there, it's one of the flattest states, which makes trucking a bit easier, but also a little dangerous when you're running on fumes. Skipping out on a few hours of sleep in this line of work could make the difference between keeping your job or getting fired. It was a chilly Tuesday morning in May. I had a long route ahead of me, Montana. I wasn't planning to stop even once. My goal? Get it done in one shot, no sleep, and finish it fast. I hit the road a few hours after lunch, expecting to reach my destination early the next morning. As midnight rolled around, I was struggling. My eyelids were heavy, and I was barely staying awake. But I only had about an hour left, so I pushed on. My buddy Tristan, another trucker, introduced me to smelling salts when I first started out. If you've never tried them, they're like little crystals in a bottle. One sniff and you're wide awake, ready to go. I wasn't worried about overdoing it. I needed something to keep me going. I took a big whiff, and immediately, the adrenaline hit. I thought I'd be good for the rest of the drive. But 30 minutes later, I was still struggling. I could feel myself nodding off. That's when I knew I had to pull over, or I'd risk falling asleep at the wheel. There was nowhere to pull off, just woods on both sides. I slowed the truck down, scanning desperately for a place to stop. Then, through the darkness, my headlights hit something strange. Something purple in the middle of the road. A dress. I blinked several times, trying to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. But it was real. As I passed it, my mind started racing. What the hell was going on? I pushed on, hoping to find somewhere to stop. A couple 100 yards up the road, I saw more clothing, this time shoes. Now, I was really starting to freak out. This wasn't normal. I kept driving, praying to God for a safe place to pull over. Further down the road, I saw a pile of clothes that looked like they belonged to kids. Panic set in. Something wasn't right here. I stopped the truck, sitting there in the driver's seat, heart pounding. I didn't know what to do. My instincts told me to investigate, but I wasn't sure I should. I decided to step out and take a look. The chilly morning air hit me hard, and I instantly felt more awake. I walked cautiously toward the pile of clothes. It was definitely kids' clothing, boy and girl clothes mixed together. As I stood there, looking around into the woods, I started to feel like I was being watched. I looked around, but the darkness swallowed everything beyond my headlights. Something was wrong. I had to get out of there. As I turned to walk back to my truck, I heard a crunch. My heart stopped. I whipped around, but there was nothing. Then, another crunch, this time from the opposite side of the road. I froze. My survival instincts kicked in, and I sprinted back to the truck, slamming the door behind me. But just as I was about to get in, I heard it. A child's scream, echoing through the woods. I froze again, heart pounding. My mind raced. Was this a trap? Was someone trying to lure me out into the woods? Before I could make up my mind, another scream, a near-identical cry, came from the other side of the road. Without thinking, I fired up the truck and drove toward the noise, my headlights cutting through the trees. What I saw froze me in place. About 30 yards into the woods, there were 3 or 4 figures huddled together, one of them holding a massive speaker. They ducked behind the trees as my headlights illuminated them, but not before I saw exactly what they were doing. They were trying to lure me into the woods using a fake child's scream. I was in shock. I couldn't move, couldn't think. I stared at the trees where they had been hiding. Just as I reached for my phone to call the police, I heard a loud thump on the side of the truck. Someone had thrown something at me. That was it. I wasn't sticking around. I slammed my foot on the gas, heading down the road as fast as I could. But before I could get far, I saw a figure on the other side of the road. He shouted something I couldn't understand, and then threw something at my passenger side window. The glass cracked. I didn't stop until I reached my destination. The drive after that was the most silent and tense hour of my life. When I finally parked, I knocked out for 10 hours straight. When I woke up, the first thing I did was call the police. They said they'd investigate the woods and keep me updated. To this day, I still don't know what those people wanted, why they didn't just rush me when they had the chance, or what they were planning if I had gone into the woods. But that night was unlike anything I've ever experienced in all my years of trucking. It's a night I'll never forget.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to be safe of all the nightmares. And remember, the darkness is always surrounding us, just waiting for a chance. Thanks for watching. See you in the next stories.